Archaeology sucks. Originally announced as part of the Caves and Cliffs update announced in 2020 and then finally released in 2023, Archaeology is an underwhelming addition. The Caves and Cliffs update infamously became delayed and had its features split across multiple updates. This includes Archaeology. Archaeology was always destined to be sidelined as it was announced as part of the Caves and Cliffs update, which was overhauling most of the overworld generation and potentially become one of the best updates ever added. Archaeology was going to compete with the new ore, new caves, and the warden, so most fans had sidelined it. And so did Mojang. As development dragged on, Archaeology seemed way less likely. Eventually, an infamous announcement came.
Hello, I'm Agnes, and today Henrik and myself will talk a bit about the Caves and Cliffs update and why we have split it into two releases. And we hope that we will be able to clarify some things around the split as well.
Caves and Cliffs will be split up and delayed, and it very much seemed like the feature had been canned entirely.
So there is one feature that is postponed, even like after the holiday release, and that's Archaeology. And the reason is that Archaeology is a complete new system, which is very exciting, but that means that we really want to give it the time it deserves so we can make it fun, inspiring, delightful, and Minecrafty. So therefore, it's postponed.
Caves and Cliffs Parts 1 and 2 would launch without Archaeology included. Hey you! Yeah you! The guy behind the screen. Are you subscribed? Didn't think so. Better not catch you lacking next time. However, almost 2 years later, they announced a Trails and Tales update, which would be completely focused on Archaeology as its new major feature. With a new focus, additional development time, Archaeology could be a great new feature, worthy of its own major version. No, instead we got an underbaked feature that ultimately disappointed many fans. The undecorated pot alone is about 90% as good as the decorated one, and none of the sherds actually have any color on them, and they're all the same shade of brown. Whereas the original actually had colored sherds, and they seemingly also had some sort of clay fire mechanic, where you place a raw pot on top of a fire, and it would fire into a fully formed pot. This promised a system that would
inspire the players to tell their own stories about their own Minecraft worlds.
This never came to fruition. Instead, only one item can be placed at a time on each face. While this does help the pot not feel cluttered, it does make it boring, and more likely than not, each pot is only going to have one visible sherd. Mechanically, the process of collecting the sherds is boring as well. Archaeologists are known to precisely extract fragile things from dig sites, and Mojang promised some feature like that during the original Caves and Cliffs announcements, where you'd have to precisely hold still and extract the item. Mojang, however, removed the feature for being too tedious. While obviously not a major loss, it does make the process more simple and a less involved mechanic. While Minecraft often thrives on the simplicity made complex through multiple simple things being combined to make an insanely complex thing, Archaeology is just boring. You oftentimes just slowly sweep through a block only to have a horrible item revealed. Some of the highlights include a brick, beetroot seeds, a dead bush, light blue stained glass pane, a lead, wheat seeds, and a wooden hoe. So imagine this. Imagine going exploring for hours to find the rare and legendary trial ruins, the new structure added to the game. When you finally arrive, you begin excavating. Slowly you sift through suspicious gravel, and finally, out of the suspicious gravel, rises a wooden hoe. Could you be more excited? I understand that those are examples of some of the worst loot obtainable, but I'm not really cherry picking. The best items are armor trims, pottery sherds, and the sniffer. The sniffer was the mob that won the mob vote, and was an ancient beast that could sniff out long lost plant seeds. The promise of new plants so enticing to the community that it handily won the mob vote. However, the torchflower and pitcher plant are mid at best, and better resemble missed opportunities. They could have easily made a few more plants or made the torchflower actually emit light, and that would have totally justified the feature. However, in its current state, they serve very little function, and due to the plant's ancient and foreign aesthetic, they feel super out of place in most places in the Minecraft world, making them only have uses in a few niche scenarios. The sniffer was super important as it had to fill a role as the major reward from Archaeology besides pottery sherds. With this new focus on the mob, only ended up hurting it as it was stuck in a pair of shoes it could never fill. This leaves Archaeology with very little going for it. Rewards as high as a diamond block were shown at the reveal. While some developers did say the item was a placeholder, it did set the expectations of the community, and while many of us expect to be disappointed, I didn't expect a wooden hose level of disappointment. And yes, the majority of the items are to tell a story, and Archaeology in the real world doesn't actually always involve unearthing massive gold blocks or great wonders like the Rosetta Stone, but in Minecraft the mechanic has to be fun. And there's nothing fun about unearthing a wooden hoe. Minecraft is a game that has always tried to constantly improve on old content, and in recent years, Mojang has actually gotten better at this. Archaeology is seriously flawed, and being recently added, we should expect to wait years, if not longer, before we see a massive improvement. However, I do think Mojang could make some. I think the core flaw with Archaeology was that Mojang did not know what to do with the mechanic, and it's part of the reasons why it got delayed from the Caves and Cliffs update and wouldn't come out for years later. I think the first thing that would fix the pots would be going back to the basic design principle they said when they were added. The pots are to tell the player's story, and it's the player's job to assemble these pots in the order they think they belong. I think more shards are needed, not just centerpiece shards, but trims and decorations. Imagine a lightning trim surrounding an axe shard. On top of that, allowing some color, maybe in the form of using a dyed cauldron to dip the pot to change the color will be at. This will greatly customize pots, make them less brown and monotone, and open them up to be used in more builds than we can imagine. This would create the possibility of assembling pots that are unique to each player and make these pots a form of art. And art ultimately is meant to be an expression, whereas the current system lacks depth and feels like an afterthought. Archaeology was also serve another purpose, to expand and tell the lore of the Minecraft world, which it also failed on. Each shard is either be interpreted so simply as to not add any more actual depth, or so esoterically that each connection feels loose and contrived.
Previously, we've said how the pottery shards were the ancient builders depicting parts of their own history.
Further elaborate on this, I think in order for Archaeology to allude to past lore, more depth needs to be added, because some of these shards don't feel all too deep or meaningful. I think more story element shards like the dragon scene would help give these a more lore accurate feel, something more akin to hieroglyphics in ancient Egypt. However, regardless of how you decide to decorate and color your pot or what deep meaning you interpret out of your findings, no matter what, you're still unable with just a decorative pot. So, Archaeology needs something more. Personally, I'm not against the roleplay and lore element of digging up seeds and wooden hoes, and while I think those items should stay, I'd like to see them added alongside some other things. The most simple addition would be more material rewards like diamond, gold, and iron, which could serve as an early source of these items and allude to what technological level these societies were on or items they praised and valued. This would also need to be joined by more subjective rewards, fitting with the artful themes, like for example, having ancient artwork that is only accessible through Archaeology. This doesn't just have to be paintings, it could also be niche things like tiny villager busts akin to mob heads, or maybe exclusive torn banners that you could take to a loom and repair to reveal flags of an ancient civilization. Another idea that would be really cool would be an ancient building template. This would be a cross between armor trims and banner patterns. When adding certain stone blocks into a stone cutter alongside these templates, it will allow you to obtain old textures of these blocks like alpha cobblestone, lapis lazuli, crane obsidian, old ore textures, or old ore block textures. This would literally allow us to view into Minecraft's past, and maybe some of these blocks like alpha cobblestone can see their way into modern Minecraft building. I would also like to add a reason for players to seek out that is unique and exclusive to the trial chambers, but isn't based purely off building. I think what Archaeology needs is treasure enchanted books. For those of you unaware, treasure enchanted books are books with enchantments that cannot be attained through the enchantment table, instead they must be found elsewhere. The most common method is villagers, and considering one of the most powerful enchantments in the game, mending, is obtained through this method, it has made a mending villager an absolute necessity for all in-game worlds. Recently, Mojang actually tried to nerf this by experimenting with different biome-specific villagers, selling specific enchantments, but the reaction from the community was mixed, and hasn't seen additions since. I think by adding enchantments like mending and or frostwalker to loot pool will incentivize players to actually go out and find these structures, instead of forcing them to deal with villagers, because as it currently stands, for the most part, there's really only two ways to get mending and or other treasure enchantments: villagers or fishing. But fishing them up is so impractical, really there's only one option. By adding mending to this loot pool, it'll give your game more diversity in its options and open up the possibility to obtain this enchantment without spending hours breeding villagers, making the ultimate trading hall. And because of the finite number of suspicious gravel at one dig site, a player is still incentivized to explore and look for more of these structures. You can even add your own enchantments unique and exclusive to Archaeology, like how the ancient city has Swift Sneak, just making sure it's useful and has broader application to the game in general, that way players are actually incentivized to use it. Does this fix Archaeology? Maybe. I don't think Archaeology will ever be a perfect or a great feature, but I do think these changes will significantly improve it. But I know how much you all love to disagree with me. I'm sure you're already typing out the paragraphs on how I'm wrong, Archaeology is the best feature, I just don't understand the deep meaning behind it.